Reborn to the day I was fired by the ice-cold female CEO, I decided to completely lie flat. In my last life, I gave everything to love her and ended up covered in scars. This life, I just want to be a salted fish, fish a little, drink some tea, get my future sorted ahead of time, and enjoy life. But I didn't expect that the moment I let go, she lofty and untouchable, would start a panic. The cold blast of the air conditioner blew from overhead, chilling the nape of my neck. The woman sitting across from me is named Sophia. She's wearing a well-tailored white suit, her long hair pinned up, revealing a smooth forehead and a refined jawline. She is the woman I spent half my life chasing in my last life, the woman who ultimately turned me into a joke. Ethan, let's talk. Her voice is as cold as the temperature in this office, without a trace of warmth. I look at her. The scene before me overlaps inch by inch with the images buried in my memory. It's this moment, that she neatly fired me for not being proactive at work and affecting team morale. In my last life, hearing those words felt like being struck by lightning. I panicked and tried to explain. I confessed desperately, saying that everything I did was for her, to be worthy of her. What did I get in return? Only a more contemptuous look and the line, "Don't make me look down on you." Those words were like a thorn, lodged in my heart for 10 years. Because of that thorn, I went insane starting businesses, chasing trends, bargaining with tigers, ruining myself until I was neither man nor ghost. I thought that if I succeeded, if I reached the same height as her, I could pull that thorn out. In the end, I failed, utterly defeated, and finally leapt from the rooftop. Unexpectedly, I was reborn, back at the starting point of all this tragedy. Ethan, Sophia frowned slightly when I remained silent for a long time. That familiar, impatient sign. I came back to myself and looked at her flawless face, but inside I felt utterly dead. Tired, really tired. I no longer wanted to experience that helplessness again, the feeling of giving everything and getting nothing. "All right," I spoke, my voice so calm it surprised even me. All of Sophia's rehearsed lines choked in her throat. For the first time, clear astonishment showed in her usually placid eyes. She had expected my pleading, my questions, even my breakdown, but she had never expected that calm. "All right." She didn't know that this Ethan before her already had his soul etched with the exhaustion of being rejected by her. What I mean is I broke the silence first, picked up the resignation agreement on the table without looking. I agreed to resign. I picked up the pen and signed my name at the end. The handwriting was messy, just like my laughable past life. "I'll finish packing my things today. As for salary and compensation, please have finance calculated." I pushed the signed agreement to her, stood up, and prepared to leave. The whole process flowed smoothly, without a trace of delay. Sophia was completely stunned. She looked at me, her eyes filled with scrutiny and bewilderment. She couldn't understand why I, who had been fighting with her colleague a few days ago and waiting under her company building with roses yesterday, would be so decisive today. This huge contrast made her feel an emotion toward me outside of work for the first time. Curiosity. "You," she finally spoke, as if wanting to ask something. I didn't give her a chance. "Miss Taylor, goodbye." I nodded politely and turned to leave. Not Sophia, but Ms. Taylor. That form of address was like an invisible wall, instantly widening the distance between us. When I reached the door and placed my hand on the handle, her cool voice came from behind me, carrying a faint, barely perceptible tension. "Ethan, are you trying to get my attention in a new way?" I stopped walking and didn't turn around. In my past life, I might have been overjoyed by that sentence, thinking she finally cared about me. But now, I only felt amused. I let out a light laugh, opened the door, and walked out without looking back. The door closed behind me, cutting off her probing gaze. I stood in the empty corridor and let out a long breath. The huge stone that had been pressing on my chest for 10 years seemed to have finally been moved. Goodbye, Sophia. In this life, I will live for myself. Back at my desk, my coworkers' gazes were varied. Some were sympathetic, some relished my misfortune, and others were simply curious gossip. I didn't care at all and quietly began packing my things. One cardboard box, a few books, a water bottle, a pothose plant. That was all I owned after 2 years of struggling here. My immediate superior, Marcus, a greasy middle-aged man, came over and hypocritically patted my shoulder. "Ethan, don't be discouraged. Ms. Taylor is doing this for the company's good. You're still young. There'll be plenty of opportunities." In my previous life, it was this Marcus who, after I was fired, quickly took over the project I've been following for a long time and used it to grab a large bonus. He even changed the project proposal's name and reported it upward as his own achievement. I looked at his hypocritical face and smiled. Mr. Wong is right. There will indeed be plenty of opportunities in the future. Only, the opportunities are mine, not yours. I hugged the cardboard box and walked out of the company building under the complex gazes of the crowd. The afternoon sunlight was a bit dazzling. I squinted and felt the whole world had become different. Without the obsession of chasing Sophia, my life suddenly gained countless possibilities. I didn't go home. I took a taxi straight to the bank. There was $50,000 in my account, all my savings. In my previous life, I took that money and impulsively started a business, only to lose it all in less than 3 months. This time, I knew this money would be the first cornerstone of my comeback. I entered a brokerage branch, opened an account, and transferred the entire $50,000 in. I remember clearly that 3 days later, an obscure tech company called Chivingkaji would announce a patent for a breakthrough battery technology, and its stock price would soar from $5 to $50 in just 1 week. In my last life, I knew nothing about this. By the time I saw it on the news, I had already missed the best opportunity. This time, I will be the earliest rent seeker. I didn't hesitate to go all in on Chiming technology. After doing all this, I felt completely relaxed. I didn't, like in my last life, stare at the market every day, getting terrified by the slightest fluctuation. I knew the outcome, so my mind was as calm as still water. This is the greatest advantage of rebirth, the information gap. They were still anxious about an uncertain future, while I was already standing at the finish line looking back. As I walked out of the service hall, I got a call. It was my best friend, Lucas. "Ethan, I heard you got fired? Is that for real?" "That Sophia woman is ruthless." Lucas's voice on the other end was full of anger. "It's true. Just finish the paperwork." I found a bench by the roadside and sat down, watching the traffic come and go. "Damn. So what are you going to do now? Do you have enough money? Why don't you come to my place? I'll set up a barbecue stall, and you could be the proprietress." "Ah, damn, boss." He made me laugh, and a warm current rose in my chest. In my last life, I was betrayed by everyone and left alone, with only Lucas staying by my side. Even when I was buried in debt, he never uttered a harsh word. "Don't worry, I won't starve. I'm planning to rest for a while." "Rest? Have you changed, kid? Weren't you the type who couldn't go a day without circling around Sophia before?" "That was then, this is now." I said lightly. "I've decided, starting today, I'm going to be a happy, salted fish." There was a few seconds of silence on the other end of the line, then a burst of laughter. "Ha ha, good. Be a salted fish. I support you. Come out for drinks tonight. We'll celebrate your salted fish rebirth." After hanging up, I stretched lazily. Yeah, being a salted fish does feel pretty good. For the next 3 days, I fully embraced the couch potato lifestyle. I turned off my phone, unplugged the internet, and slept until I woke up naturally. Then I went to the park near my home to watch the old men play chess and listen to the Annies sing rural folk songs. In the afternoons, I rented a fishing rod and sat by the river for the whole afternoon, whether or not any fish bit. My heart was calmer than ever. What I didn't know was that while I was enjoying my couch potato life, Sophia was anything but calm. She sat in the spacious office, a report on me placed before her. The report was simple. My life history was laid out clearly. Ordinary family, ordinary university. After graduation, I joined her company, my work performance mediocre, the only highlight being my almost obsessive pursuit of her. Sophia's assistant, a capable young woman named Chloe, stood to the side and asked cautiously, "Ms. Taylor, Do you want me to continue investigating? Sophia rubbed her brow and waved her hand. Chloe stepped back out, though her mind was full of questions. She had followed Sophia for 3 years, and this was the first time she'd seen her take such interest in a dismissed employee. What was so special about this Ethan? Sophia was asking herself the same question. That day I left cleanly and decisively, like a pebble tossed in her calm heart lake, stirring ripple after ripple. She was used to controlling everything, and my reaction was the first to escape her control. She even had Chloe check my bank account to see if I'd found new backer. What they found was that not only had I found no backer, I had invested the only $50,000 I had into a junk stock, Chiming Technology. Foolish. That was Sophia's verdict at the time. She remembered the stock, years of losses on the brink of delisting a well-known trap in the capital market. She concluded I was giving up entirely. However, this morning the market gave her a resounding slap in the face. Chiming Technology suddenly issued an announcement, declaring it had made a major technological breakthrough in solid-state batteries and had secured a large military order. At the opening, Chiming Technology's stock immediately hit the daily upper limit. Countless funds went mad trying to pour in, but they simply couldn't buy any. Sophia stared at the bright red "Limit Up" sign on her computer screen, speechless for a long time. $50,000, multiplied tenfold, is $500,000. For her, $500,000 was nothing. But for someone like me, newly unemployed and with savings depleted, it was undoubtedly a fortune. Is it a coincidence? Sophia didn't believe in coincidences. In this world, behind any seeming coincidence, there was a necessary logic. For the first time, she began to study the name Ethan seriously. She pulled up all my work record from the past 2 years, project reports, even every message I had ever sent her. She tried to find a plausible explanation from these clues. But she failed. My past was as ordinary as a glass of plain water. This feeling of being unable to control things made Sophia feel a bit irritated. She picked up her phone and dialed a number. Help me look someone up? Ethan. I want to know who he's seen and what he's done in the past 3 days. The more detailed, the better. Of course, I didn't know any of that. I was carrying a palm-sized crucian carp, humming a little tune as I walked home. When I turned my phone on, a flood of messages came in. Some from Lucas, some from the bank, and a few from unknown numbers. I ignored the unknown numbers and opened Lucas's WhatsApp. Fuck. Ethan, you bastard got rich. Chiming Tech. Did the stock god possess you? I smiled and replied. I said I'd be a couch potato, but you need capital for that, right? Then I opened the bank text message. Dear customer, the market value of your securities account has reached $550,000. Staring at that string of numbers, I took a deep breath. Good. The first step for this salted fish to turn over is secure. After earning my first pot of gold, I felt no excitement or need to show off. In my last life, I drank with clients until my stomach bled for a contract worth tens of thousands of dollars. Now, $500,000 is just the beginning to me. My goal is the stars and the sea. The first thing I did was rent an apartment on the top floor of a high-end complex in the center of Starport City with a huge terrace. I bought a bunch of flowers and plants, a comfortable lounge chair, and a barbecue grill. This would be my salted fish paradise. The second thing was transferring $200,000 to Lucas. Ethan, what are you doing? I don't want this. Lucas immediately returned the money. I call him right away. Take it. You always wanted to expand your barbecue stall into a storefront, right? Consider this my investment. From now on, I'm counting on you, boss, to have my back. There was silence on the other end of the line. I knew Lucas's dream was to open his own barbecue restaurant. In a last life, he gave me the money he had saved to open the shop to help pay off my debts. Okay, Ethan, thanks. Lucas's voice was a little choked. Don't get sentimental. I teased and hung up. After doing all this, I felt my thoughts clear. Coming back to life was not just to make money, but also to make up for the regrets of my previous life. In the afternoon, I was tending to my plants on the terrace when I received a call from an unknown number. Hello, is this Mr. Ethan? This is the Tianyu Private Club. Your friend Mr. Dylan has booked a private room for you tonight. Dylan? An oily, powdered face full of arrogance immediately surfaced in my mind. Dylan, a rich second-generation heir, was also one of Sophia's many suitors. In my previous life, he often tripped me up, frequently humiliating me in public, treating me as a stepping stone and a joke on his path to pursuing Sophia. Why did he come looking for me? I understood instantly. Showing off. If I quit, he'd surely think Sophia had completely abandoned me. And he, as the victor, would naturally want to flaunt himself in front of a loser like me. In my past life, I might have been angry, might have resented it. But now, I only feel bored. Sorry, I'm not available. I refused outright. Mr. Johnson, Mr. Lee says Miss Sophia will be here tonight too. My hand paused for a moment. Sophia is going too? Is Dylan trying to put on a show in front of me, winning the beauty back? I suddenly found it a bit funny. Fine, if he wants to perform, I'll go be an audience. While I'm at it, I might as well collect some interest. Send me the address. That night, I wore casual clothes and went to the Tianyu Club. Pushing open the private room door, there were already quite a few people inside. When Dylan saw me, he immediately stood up, an exaggerated smile on his face. Ethan, you finally made it. I thought you wouldn't dare come, he said as he pulled me to the seat next to the host. Seated in the main chair was Sophia. Today she wore a black long dress, different from her usual professional attire, with an added touch of softness. But her expression remained that same icy aloofness that kept people at a distance. When she saw me, her eyes flickered for a moment, but she quickly regained her composure. She, too, seemed surprised that Dylan had called me over. Ethan, I hear you made a little fortune recently? Dylan said loudly, intentionally so everyone could hear. Bought a lucky hit on a speculative stock. How does it feel? Like you're dreaming, right? Everyone burst into uproarious laughter. They looked at me as if I were a pauper who had just won the lottery. I ignored him and simply sat down, pouring myself a cup of tea. Luck is also a part of strength, I said lightly. Dylan was momentarily silenced by me, his face turning somewhat unpleasant. He hadn't expected that after only a few days apart, this poor youngster who used to be meek before him would dare talk back. Luck? Ethan, you don't really think you can turn your life around with a bit of luck, do you? He gestured toward everyone present. The deals we handle here are all projects worth tens of millions of dollars. What could your little sum possibly do? It's enough for me to live comfortably for the rest of my life. I leaned back in my chair, looking languid. Unlike some people who still have to work hard to accompany clients and pull in projects, my words hit Dylan's sore spot like a needle. His family was wealthy, but he himself was mediocre and relied entirely on family connections. He hated more than anything being said to be working hard. Dylan's face flushed the color of pork liver. Just then, Sophia suddenly spoke. Dylan, you called him here just to say this? Her voice was very cold, with a hint of displeasure. Everyone could see that Sophia was unhappy. Dylan immediately looked as if he'd been doused with cold water, hastily forcing a smile. Sophia, I'm just venting for you. That guy used to pester you so much, and now that you've fired him, I have to make him face reality. He thought he was helping Sophia, but he didn't realize that his words made her even more repelled. Sophia didn't look at him. Instead, her gaze fell on me. Ethan, she looked at me and spoke slowly. I heard you turned down the investment offer from Shanghai Capital. The moment those words came out, the entire private room fell silent. Shanghai Capital. That's one of the country's top investment firms. They actually invited Ethan? Dylan's smile froze on his face. I was taken aback too. I hadn't even told Lucas about this. How did Sophia find out? It seems she really is investigating me. I met her gaze and smiled. Yes, I admitted calmly. Different paths, no shared plans. She never expected that I would not only admit it, but use such an arrogant reason. Shanghai Capital is a place countless people fight tooth and nail to get into. Yet from my mouth it became different paths. Sophia's gaze grew even deeper. She found that she understood me less and less. Was this man truly confident and well-prepared? Or was he just putting on a show? The atmosphere at the dinner became somewhat strange. Dylan's carefully prepared humiliation session turned into my solo show. He tried several times to steer the conversation back to his comfort zones, like sports cars and red wine, but I brushed them off lightly. I acted like an outsider the whole time, totally uninterested in their commercial backpatting, just quietly eating and drinking tea. This kind of disregard made Dylan more upset than any rebuttal could. He felt like his punch landed on cotton, all force with nowhere to go. Halfway through the meal, Dylan finally couldn't hold back. He raised his glass and stood up. "Ethan, I know you're getting a bit full of yourself right now, but let me tell you, in the face of absolute strength, any luck is a joke." He pointed to a building under construction outside the window. "See it? Global Tower, a project my dad's company invested in. Next month, I'll officially take the position of Deputy General Manager for this project." Everyone around let out exclamations and compliments. This project also has Taylor Group involved. Dylan's gaze turned to Sophia, full of pride. "Sophia, for now on we're partners, so let's get closer." There was no expression on Sophia's face. She only nodded lightly. Dylan was pleased with the effect. He turned back and looked down at me with a condescending gaze. "Ethan, do you now see the gap between us? You're still playing your little stock game with tens of thousands of dollars, while we are already leveraging billions in capital." I put down my chopsticks and wiped my mouth with a napkin. "Global Tower?" I looked at the building and said thoughtfully, "As far as I know, the general contractor for that project is Hong Construction, right?" Dylan froze for a moment. "So what?" "Hong Construction is a listed company with strong capabilities." I smiled, a somewhat meaningful smile. "If I remember correctly, Hong Construction recently took on a big contract in South America, a hydropower project, right?" Dylan's expression changed. This was internal news from Hong Construction, and he only learned it through his father's connections. How could Ethan possibly know? I didn't wait for him to answer and continued, "That project looks beautiful on the surface, but it's actually a huge sinkhole. The local political situation is unstable, the geological conditions are complex, and the funding chain could break at any time. Hong Construction has practically bet everything on this project." Each of my words was like a nail driven into Dylan's heart. In less than a month, Hong Construction's funding chain will break, their stock will plummet, and all their ongoing projects, including Global Tower, will halt. By then, as deputy project manager on this project, you'll probably only be left to guard the construction site. When I finished speaking, the entire private room fell deathly silent. Everyone looked at me as if I were insane. Hong Construction go bankrupt? The Global Tower stop construction? This is sheer fantasy. You're talking nonsense. Dylan finally reacted, pointing at me and shouting, "Who do you think you are? A fired employee, stirring up trouble here." I shrugged, wearing a look of indifference. "Believe it or not is up to you. In a month, the truth will come out." After speaking, I stood up. "This meal has filled me. Thank you for the hospitality, Mr. Lee." I looked at Dylan's face twisted with anger and smiled faintly. "Oh, by the way, a friendly reminder. If you persuade your dad to sell off the Hong Construction shares he's holding now, maybe you can lose a little less." After saying that, I stopped looking at him and walked straight toward the door. When I passed by Sophia, she suddenly spoke. "Where did you get that information?" Her voice was very low, audible only to the two of us. I stopped walking and turned my head to look at her. Her eyes were no longer icy. Instead, they were filled with turbulent waves. She was a top-tier businesswoman. She could tell that what I had just said did not come out of thin air. That grasp of detail and judgment of the situation were not something an ordinary person could fabricate. I looked at her and suddenly leaned close to her ear. I could smell the faint scent of her perfume, just like in the last life. "I guessed it," I said in a low voice. Then, to her stunned gaze, I straightened up and turned away with a casual air. Walking out of the private room, I heard Dylan's furious roaring and the sound of a glass being smashed coming from inside. I smiled. "Dylan, this is only the beginning. The humiliations you piled on me in my last life, I will make you pay back 100-fold. I returned home, lay on the lounge chair on the terrace, and watched the stars in the sky. Tonight's confrontation with Dylan was just an appetizer. I know the real show has yet to begin. Sophia would never easily believe my words, but the seed of doubt had been planted. With her personality, she would definitely investigate. And the results of that investigation would only shock her more. Sure enough, early the next morning, I received a call from Lucas. "Ethan, what did you do last night? That kid Dylan is like a mad dog today, looking everywhere for people to dig into you. Have him look into it." I was frying myself an egg and feeling pretty good. No, he even went so far as to say he'll make sure you can't stay in Shingang City. Did you seriously offend him? He came to me asking for a beating. I put the cooked egg on a plate and sprinkled a bit of black pepper. "Then be careful. That guy's no good. Don't worry, I know what I'm doing." After hanging up, I leisurely ate breakfast. I knew Dylan's revenge would come soon. In my previous life, he used all kinds of means to crush me, causing me to lose my job and sever my connections. But in this life, the one he faced was me with God's eye perspective. All his tricks, to me, looked like children's play. Meanwhile, in the Taylor Group's top executive office, Sophia hadn't slept all night. She mobilized every connection in her network to investigate Hong Yuan Construction's project in South America. The information that came back shocked her. What Ethan had said turned out to be completely true. Hong Yuan Construction did sign many unequal clauses to secure that project. And the local political situation was indeed, as Ethan said, seething beneath the surface and liable to erupt into conflict at any moment. This was a huge powder keg, and Hong Yuan Construction was sitting right on top of it. "Ms. Taylor, here's the information you requested." Assistant Chloe placed a document on her desk. Sophia opened the file. It contained a more detailed investigative report on me, including my recent cash flows and the fact that I had rented the penthouse at Platinum U Mansion. Platinum U Residence. Sophia mouthed the name, her expression complicated. It was one of Shingang City's most upscale apartments, with a monthly rent reaching 6 figures in dollars. He used the $500,000 profit to rent a place like that. What on earth is he trying to do? "Ms. Taylor," Chloe hesitated for a moment, then spoke. "Mr. Lee over there seems to be pulling strings, trying to blackball Ethan." Sophia's gaze instantly turned icy. What did he do? He reached out to several headhunting firms and contacted some of Ethan's former clients, saying some bad things. Sophia's fingertips tapped gently on the desk, producing a steady clicking sound. The pressure in the office was unbearably low. Chloe didn't even dare to breathe. She knew Miss Taylor was truly angry, but she couldn't understand why Ms. Taylor would be furious on behalf of a former employee, someone so important to Dylan's partnership. "Tell Dylan," Sophia finally spoke, her voice devoid of any emotion, "that if he dares to lay a finger on Ethan again, all cooperation between his father and the Taylor Group will be terminated immediately." Chloe shivered all over, barely able to believe her ears. Offend the Lee family just for an Ethan? Why, yes, Miss Taylor. She didn't dare ask more and hurriedly stepped out. Only Sophia remained in the office. She stood up, walked to the huge floor-to-ceiling window, and looked down over the bustling city. Those words I whispered in her ear last night, I was guessing, echoed in her mind over and over. Guessing? Who could guess so accurately? "Ethan, who exactly are you? How many more secrets are you hiding?" For the first time, she felt such a strong curiosity about a man. Dylan's revenge came faster than I expected, and dumber too. Well, he couldn't ruin me through business. He resorted to some dirty tricks. That afternoon, I was fishing by the river when a few rough-looking young men surrounded me. The leader, a blonde kid with a cigarette in his mouth, stared at me with hostility. "Kid, are you the one called Ethan?" I lifted my eyelids a little, said nothing, and kept staring at my fishing float. "Damn it, I'm talking to you." A green-haired guy stepped forward and tried to kick my fish bucket. I flicked my wrist, the fishing line flew out precisely, hook and all, wrapping around his ankle. I pulled hard again, and the green-haired guy let out an "oi" and went down flat on his face. You fucking dare lay a hand on me. Huang Mao snapped, motioning the others to rush forward with him. I sighed. Looks like today's fish isn't biting. I stood up and rolled my wrist. In my previous life, I'd learned a few Sonda moves for social occasions. Not exactly a master, but more than enough for dealing with these punks. Just as I was about to move, several black sedans silently pulled up a short distance away. The car door opened, and a dozen or so burly men in black suits stepped out, their movements coordinated in uniform, clearly well-trained bodyguards. The few blonde guys were stunned. The leader of the burly men walked up to me and bowed respectfully. Mr. Johnson, we're late. You weren't alarmed, were you? I froze. I didn't know these people. Who are you? We were sent by Ms. Taylor to protect you. Sophia? I understood instantly. It was her who had acted. When the blonde guys heard Ms. Taylor, their legs went weak. In Star Harbor City, a tailor with that kind of status could only be one person. By Big Brother, it's a misunderstanding, all a misunderstanding. The blonde dropped his cigarette to the ground, stammering as he explained, I was Dylan, mister. Lee sent us. We're just taking money to do the job. The burly butler leading them nodded and gave the people behind him a look. Take them away and find out the whole story. A few burly men stepped forward and, like picking up chicks, shoved Huang Mao and the others into the car. The whole process took less than a minute, and the riverside returned to calm as if nothing had happened. Mr. Johnson, Ms. Taylor would like to see you, the lead man said to me. I looked at him, feeling a mix of emotions. Is Sophia trying to flatter me? Or is she testing me? Lead the way. The car drove all the way to Taylor Group's underground garage. I took the private elevator straight to the top floor CEO office. Sophia was still sitting behind a huge desk. When she saw me enter, she waved for everyone to leave. Sit. She pointed to the sofa across from her. I didn't sit. I just stood there looking at her. Ms. Taylor, what is this? Surveillance? Or protection? My tone was somewhat cold. Being stared at like a criminal feels terrible, even if the other person is Sophia. To protect you. Sophia looked at me, her gaze honest. I know Dylan's methods. I don't want you to get hurt because of me. Because of you? I laughed. Ms. Taylor, are you mistaken about something? You and I are just former boss and former employee now. Dylan's bothering me because I made him lose face, not because of you. My words were like a knife, cutting the boundary between us. Sophia's complexion went pale. She hadn't expected me to be so absolute. Ethan, she stood up and walked over to me. I know you're still mad at me. Before, it was my fault. She apologized. The haughty Sophia actually apologized to me. If it were me in my previous life, I probably would have been so emotional I'd burst into tears. But now all I felt was irony. Miss Taylor, you flatter me. You aren't wrong. You just did what you thought was right. I looked into her eyes and spoke word by word. Just like me now, I'm only doing what I think is right, which is to stay away from you. After saying that, I didn't look at her anymore and turned to leave. Ethan, she called after me, her voice carrying a note of urgency, even a hint of grievance. You were right about Hanyuan Construction. This afternoon, their South American project site erupted into military conflict. The project has been completely halted. The stock price has already fallen by 30%. My steps faltered, but I didn't turn back. So, I want to ask you for a favor. Her voice was lowered, carrying a hint of entreaty. The Global Tower project, Taylor Group invested a lot of money. If Hanyuan goes under, our losses will be catastrophic. I fell silent. In the previous life, the Global Tower project did indeed become a stalled ruin when Hanyuan Construction went bankrupt. Taylor Group was severely weakened and nearly swallowed up by several rival companies working together. It was from that time that Sophia became colder and stopped trusting anyone. Helping her would mean I'd have to get drawn back into these corporate battles. My plan to lie flat would be ruined. Not helping her, given Taylor Group's situation at the time. She couldn't possibly hold on by herself. My heart is in turmoil. I had clearly decided to cut ties with her. So why did I still feel a pang of reluctance when I heard she might be in trouble? Why should I help you? I heard my own voice, cold and hoarse. Set the terms, Sophia said, decisive and resolute. In the end, I still couldn't refuse. Because of the terms Sophia set, I couldn't refuse. She didn't say how much money she'd give me, or how many shares. She simply looked at me with a kind of vulnerability I'd never seen before and said one sentence. Tell me this once. After that, I will never disturb your life again. That sentence hit precisely in my soft spot. Isn't the life I want just a peaceful, undisturbed life of doing nothing? Okay, I agreed. I told her that the only way to resolve the global tower crisis was, before Hanyuan construction completely collapsed, to find a new general contractor and to obtain control of the project from Dylan's father, who is the largest investor in Global Tower. That's impossible. Sophia immediately dismissed it. The Lee family won't let go, and in this situation, no company would dare take over. Yes, I spat out a name. Tiangong Group. Sophia was stunned. Tiangong Group, an old state-owned construction company with a conservative style, never took part in risky commercial ventures. They won't agree to it. They will. I looked at her, my gaze steady. Because the chairman of Tiangong Group, Theodore Liu, owes me a favor. Sophia's eyes snapped wide open. Theodore Liu? That titan of the construction world. Would he owe Ethan a favor? Her mind could no longer process the successive shocks. She felt the man before her was like a bottomless black hole, full of countless mysteries. She didn't know that in her previous life, at her lowest point, she had once saved Theodore Liu's only granddaughter in an accident. Theodore Liu had then promised to grant her any one request, but she never used that favor until she died. This life, it just so happens to come in handy. As for the Lee family, I continued, you don't need to worry about them. I'll handle it. Seeing my confident demeanor, Sophia was at a loss for words. She realized that, without noticing it, she had begun to rely on the man she had once looked down upon most. Over the next few days, I began to make my moves. I first anonymously tipped the media with a bombshell. Dylan's father, George Lee, chairman of the Lee Group, was suspected of embezzling funds from the Global Tower project to cover losses in his family's businesses. Once the news broke, public opinion erupted. The Lee Group stock price immediately plunged. Other investors in the Global Tower also began to lose serious trust in the Lee family. George Lee was in a panic, scrambling to put out fires everywhere. As for Dylan, he went mad, convinced I was the one pulling strings behind the scenes, though he had no evidence. Then I dialed Theodore Liu's number. When I gave my name, the old man on the other end of the line fell silent for a long time. Child, I've been waiting for your call. Theodore Liu's voice was full of feeling. I didn't waste words and got straight to the point. Take over the Global Tower? Theodore Liu looked troubled. This project is a hot potato right now. Mr. Liu, I understand your concerns. But what if I told you I can get the Shingang city government to step in, provide policy support and low-interest loans for this project? Besides, winning this project would be the best opportunity for Tiangong Group to break into Shingang City's high-end commercial real estate market. My words sent Theodore Liu into thought. The bait I tossed out was one he couldn't refuse. What do you need me to do? Very simple. All you need to do is... I laid out my plan, holding nothing back. After hanging up, I stared at the night view outside the window and took a deep breath. The board was set, and the pieces were all in their places. Dylan, your time of death has come. 3 days later, an emergency meeting of the Globe Tower Project investors was held. The atmosphere in the conference room was solemn. Representatives of all the investors were present, including Lee and his son with sullen faces, and Sophia, whose expression was calm. As Sophia's special advisor, I was also seated at her side. When Dylan saw me, his eyes were red. If his father hadn't held him back, he would have charged forward. Ladies and gentlemen, regarding Hanyuan construction, I apologize. George Lee immediately played the sympathy card. But I assure you, the Lee Group is capable of handling the follow-up matters and will never let everyone's investment go down the drain. Assure? How can you assure us? A representative of the investors immediately challenged. The project is halted now. The daily losses are astronomical. The bank's dunning notices are already on my desk. Exactly. I've also heard that, Mr. Lee, you diverted the project's funds? Nonsense. That's slander. George Lee stood up excitedly. The conference room immediately descended into chaos. At that moment, Sophia gently tapped the table. Everyone's gazes focused on her. Everyone. Arguing won't solve anything. Sophia's voice was quiet but powerful. What's most important now is finding a solution. She paused, then continued. I have a proposal. She gestured, and I stood up, distributing a document to those present. This is the proposal put forward by the Taylor Group regarding the restructuring of the Global Tower project, I said aloud. The core of the plan is that the new investor, namely the Taylor Group, together with Tiangong Group, will take full control of the project. At the same time, we will purchase the project's shares held by each of you at a reasonable price. My words had just fallen when the whole room erupted. Tiangong Group? They actually hired Tiangong Group? George Lee's face went pale in an instant. He knew that if Tiangong Group really got involved, then he was completely doomed. Impossible. Tiangong Group couldn't possibly take on this mess. Dylan screamed. No sooner had I finished speaking than the conference room door was pushed open. Theodore Liu, chairman of Tiangong Group, walked in, flanked by a group of people. Who said we wouldn't take it? Theodore Liu's voice was loud, his gaze electric as it swept across the room. At the sight of Theodore Liu in person, the entire conference room erupted. The Lee father and son, meanwhile, looked as if all their strength had been drained, slumping back into their chairs. They knew the situation was lost. Mr. Liu, George Lee struggled to say something. Theodore Liu didn't even look at him, walked straight up to me, and held out his hand. Ethan, young man, we meet again. I took his hand. Mr. Liu, long time no see. This scene completely shattered everyone's worldview, especially Dylan. His eyes nearly popped out. He couldn't understand how this poor kid and his eyes could be on such intimate terms with someone as big as Theodore Liu. Sophia looked at me too, her expression betraying unmistakable shock and a trace of pride she hadn't even realized she felt. The man beside her once again worked a miracle. What followed then fell into place naturally. With Theodore Liu personally presiding, all the investors agreed to Taylor Group's plan. The Lees were completely ousted. Not only did they lose all their investments, they were also targeted by the prosecutors for embezzlement. After the meeting ended, Dylan sat in the corridor, numb and distraught. I walked up to him. Now, do you understand the gap between us? I returned his own words to him exactly as he'd once said to me. Dylan suddenly looked up, his eyes bloodshot as he stared at me, his lips trembling, but he couldn't utter a single word. I ignored him and walked straight towards Sophia, who was waiting for me not far away. I know that from today on, the name Dylan will forever vanish from our world. With the crisis averted, the Taylor Group not only suffered no losses, but because it led the Global Tower project, its reputation and strength rose to a higher level. At the celebration banquet, Sophia became the center of attention. She held a glass and moved effortlessly among the business magnates. But her gaze kept involuntarily drifting to the corner where that man sat quietly eating. That man was me. I have no interest in these occasions of mutual business flattery. I just want to fill my stomach and then go home to lie down. Mr. Advisor Johnson, we really owe you this time. A director came over with a glass to toast. It was MS. Taylor's capable leadership, I replied politely. Mr. Advisor Johnson, you are too modest. To be honest, when Ms. Taylor said she wanted to hire you as an advisor, we were all a bit nervous. We didn't expect you to be the real, steadying force. Those around nodded in agreement. I only smiled and said nothing more. Halfway through the banquet, Sophia came over to my side. Not used to this kind of place? She asked. I nodded. Too noisy. Then shall we go for a walk? I was a bit surprised, but I still followed her outside. We arrived at the Hotel Sky Garden. The evening breeze was slightly cool, dispersing the smell of alcohol from our clothes. Thank you. Sophia leaned against the railing, looking at the city's nightscape in the distance, and said softly, "No need to thank me. It was a transaction." I reminded her. Sophia fell silent. After a while, she suddenly asked, "How? Do you know Chairman Mr. Liu? I told you. He owes me a favor." Just that simple. Just that simple. Sophia turned her head and looked at me seriously. "Ethan, can you tell me who you really are? Why do you know so many things? Why did you suddenly change, like you're a different person?" This was the question she had always wanted to ask. I looked at her. Her eyes in the night were like two bright stars. The layer of ice that wrapped her seemed to be melting little by little. I sighed. "If I said I was from the future, would you believe me?" I said half-jokingly. Sophia was stunned. She stared at me for a few seconds, then suddenly laughed. That was the first time I saw her smile. Not the kind of commercial, polite smile, but a wholehearted smile like the first thaw of ice and snow. It was beautiful, so beautiful it made my heart tremble. "You really are." She shook her head, as if searching for the right word. "Interesting." I said nothing. I knew she didn't believe me. But that was fine. The deal is done. I looked at her. As agreed, from now on we owe each other nothing and won't bother one another. Having said that, I prepared to turn and leave. My wrist was suddenly grabbed by her. Her hand was cold, but she held on tightly. "I've changed my mind." She looked at me and spoke each word deliberately. I frowned. "Ms. Taylor, going back on your word isn't like you. I don't want to talk about style with you." There was a stubbornness in her eyes I had never seen before. "Ethan, I'm not going to let you leave me again." I looked at her, my feelings a jumble. In my last life, I dreamt of hearing those words. But in this life, when they actually came, all I wanted was to run. "Sophia." I called her by name, not Miss Taylor. "Are you mistaken about something? The one you like is Mr. Advisor Johnson, the man who can solve your crises and make Theodore Lou keep face, not this useless Ethan who just wants to lie flat and be a salted fish." I can tell the difference. She gripped him tighter. Before, I was blind. I thought what I needed was a partner from a matching background, but only now do I know I needed someone who makes me feel safe. I feel safe by her side. Her confession was plain and burning. My heart leapt uncontrollably. I used so much effort to break free from that whirlpool. Was I really going to fall back into it again? I finally tore my hand away from hers. "Give me some time." I left those words and fled in panic. In the days that followed, I shut myself up at home. I tried to calm myself with fishing, tending flowers, and watching movies, but Sophia's look and words that night kept lingering in my mind. I admit it, I wavered. This woman I have loved for 2 lifetimes, when she set aside all pride and came to me, I found I could not keep my heart as still as water. But the wounds of the last life, like an invisible shackle, kept me from daring to take that step. I am afraid. I'm afraid this will be another illusion. Just as I was torn and indecisive, an even greater storm was quietly brewing. From scattered snippets of international news, I keenly sensed a whiff of danger. A financial storm, led by Wall Street titans and aimed at Asia's emerging markets, was about to hit. In my previous life, that storm swept through countless companies. Although the Taylor Group had secured its foothold with the Global Tower project, it collapsed in a storm due to overexpansion and a broken capital chain, and was ultimately maliciously taken over by an overseas investor. Sophia thus lost control of the company. That was the darkest moment of her life. I remember she locked herself in the office for 3 days and nights. I could hear her muffled sobs through the door. In that moment, my heart felt like it was being torn apart, yet I was powerless. Thinking of that, my chest tightened abruptly. No, I cannot let that kind of thing happen again. Even if it's to repay the debt from my previous life, I will help her get through this ordeal. I immediately dialed Sophia's number. "It's me." On the other end of the line, Sophia's voice carried a hint of surprise. "You finally decided to contact me. No time for nonsense." My tone was very serious. "Immediately withdraw from all your overseas operations, liquidate all non-core assets, and do everything possible to recover funds. The more the better, and the faster the better." Sophia was stunned for a moment. "What's going on?" A massive financial storm is coming, I said in a low voice. Trust me, and do as I say. There was silence on the other end of the line. I knew this was a difficult decision for her. The Taylor Group was in a period of rapid expansion, and for her to slam on the brakes now, or even reverse, would be like cutting off her own arm. Okay. However, after only a few seconds, she gave her answer. One word, without the slightest hesitation. This time, it was my turn to be stunned. You're not going to ask why? No need, she said, because you said it, so I believe you. A simple sentence, yet like a warm current. It instantly swept away every defense in my heart. So this is what it feels like to be trusted unconditionally. After hanging up, I didn't relax at all, because I knew the real battle had only just begun. I invested all my funds, what I earned from Chiming Technology, plus the consulting fee Sophia later gave me, nearly $10 million in total, all into the international futures market. What I intend to do is short selling, to make an enemy of all of Wall Street. This is a high-stakes gamble. If I win, I'll gain unimaginable wealth and prestige. If I lose, I'll have nothing and may even be saddled with massive debts. But I have no choice, because only in this way could we snatch enough meat from the mouths of those hungry wolves to make up for the losses caused by Taylor Group's contraction of its front. And only in this way could we utterly destroy that overseas capital that maliciously acquired Taylor Group in the previous life. I sat in front of the computer, watching the numbers on the screen flashing constantly, my gaze calm and resolute. Bring it on. This life, I will be your armor. The storm arrived more fiercely than I had expected. Overnight, currencies across many Asian countries plunged, stock markets crashed. Countless businesses went bankrupt, countless people were ruined. In Shingang City's business world, there was wailing everywhere. Many of the business tycoons who were boasting at yesterday's victory banquet now stand at the edge of the rooftop. And because the Taylor Group had pulled back its front lines early and reclaimed a large amount of cash, it was shaken, but its foundations remained intact. They became one of the few companies able to hold their ground in this storm. Everyone marveled at Sophia's foresight and boldness. Only Sophia herself knew that all of this stemmed from a single phone call from that man. She stood before the office floor-to-ceiling window, watching the world outside sway in wind and rain, yet her heart was peaceful. She dialed my number. "We won," she said. "No." I looked at the green number on the computer screen that signified our victory and said lightly, "It was we who won." "Ethan," her voice trembled slightly, "how much did you make?" I did the math and quoted a figure. On the other end of the line, there was a long silence. Silence, until I thought the line had dropped. "Ethan," she spoke again, a tone I couldn't quite place in her voice. "You could buy 10 Taylor Groups right now." I smiled. "So what? I'm not interested in your company." "What are you interested in then?" she pressed. I closed my laptop, stood up, and walked out to the terrace. The air after the rain was especially fresh. My flowers and plants, having been washed by the night storm, looked even more radiant. "I'm interested in you." I hesitated, then said the line I'd wanted to say in both my lifetimes, "interested in you." On the other end of the line came her suppressed, joyful sobs. 3 days later, the Taylor Group held a press conference. Sophia stood under the spotlight and announced that the Taylor Group would join with a newly established Voyage Capital to make strategic investments in and restructure several high-quality companies that have fallen into trouble during the financial storm. And the sole shareholder of Voyage Capital was me. As soon as the news broke, the entire business world was shaken. The name Ethan, overnight, transformed from a lucky poor boy into a capital tycoon admired by everyone. After the press conference, backstage, Sophia walked up to me and personally straightened my tie. "From now on, do you still want to be a salted fish?" She tilted her head back and asked me with a smile. I looked at the starlight in her eyes and took her hand. "Yes," I said earnestly, "but I want to find a place to be one with you." She smiled, her brows and eyes curved, like flowers blooming all over the world. I took her hand and walked out of the building. Outside, the sun was just right. I looked back at the building I once both longed for and loathed, feeling completely relieved. I finally understood that the meaning of being reborn once is not for revenge, nor for making money. It is to have enough strength to protect the people I love and to live the life I want. As for those former enemies and past wounds, they have all become fleeting smoke. The road ahead is still long, but this time I will not let go of her hand again. Easter egg. 1 year later, at the wedding of Sophia and me, Lucas, my best man, was dead drunk, clutching me and sobbing. Ethan, that's not fair. We agreed to be lazy together, but you went and became a Casanova behind my back. I looked at him, half amused and half exasperated. Sophia came over, wrapped her arms around me from behind, and whispered in my ear, "Ignore him. Tonight, my Casanova belongs to me alone." I turned and kissed her lips. Not far away, a mysterious man in a black trench coat watched all this silently, then turned and disappeared into the crowd. In his hand, he held an old cell phone, and on the screen was a message that had just been received. "New Reborn has appeared. Target, Sophia." The man lifted his head, a meaningful smile tugging at the corner of his mouth. The game seems to have become more interesting. "George, I've got good news and bad news. Which do you want to hear first?" I put down my paintbrush and looked at my friend Frank. He stood at the studio door with a mysterious air, his face a mix of nervousness and excitement. "Let's start with the bad news. After all, I've gotten used to it these past 3 years. Your painting, Eternity, just sold for a sky-high price. Over $6 million. I frowned. "How is that bad news?" Frank chuckled. "Because it's actually part of the good news. The bad news is, buddy, you might need to see a psychiatrist." "What do you mean?" "A woman who looks exactly like Mary showed up at your art exhibition. I almost thought I was seeing a ghost." The paintbrush slipped from my hand and fell to the floor, splattering paint across the unfinished canvas. "Mary, my late wife, died 3 years ago after accidentally falling off a cliff. I watched with my own eyes as her body was pulled from the water. In that moment, my world completely collapsed." "Stop joking around, Frank. Why would I lie to you?" "She even left this." Frank handed me a note with an address and a time written on it. My hand trembled slightly. The handwriting was exactly the same as Mary's. That night, I waited until midnight at the designated cafe. Just as I was about to leave, a familiar figure appeared at the door. "Mary?" No, it couldn't be her. But every gesture of that woman, from the tips of her hair to her fingertips, was a shadow of Mary. "George, it's been a long time." She sat across from me, and the familiar voice nearly made my heart stop. "Who are you?" I struggled to remain calm. "I'm Mary, your wife." She smiled and reached out her hand. There was a scar on her palm, the mark Mary got when she accidentally cut herself on glass at 15. "Impossible. Mary is already dead." She laughed softly. "That was just an accident. I fell off the cliff and was saved by a reclusive old doctor. I lost my memory from the injuries and only recently remembered everything." As she spoke, tears began to fall, an expression I knew all too well, the look Mary wore whenever she felt wronged. "I know it's hard to believe, but I really am Mary." I couldn't believe my eyes. The shade of lipstick Mary loved most, the faint little mole beneath her left ear, the unconscious habit of rubbing her ring while speaking. Everything was so familiar. Are you really Mary?" She nodded and took a small box out of her bag. "This is the proof." Inside the box was the first piece of jewelry Mary ever designed. A sapphire ring, the only one of its kind, never mass-produced. "I brought it with me that day because I wanted to surprise you." I suddenly stood up and pulled her into my arms. 3 years of longing surged over me like a tide. I held her tightly, afraid that if I let go, she would disappear again. On the way home, she told me about her experiences over the past 3 years. She was rescued by an old doctor in the mountains, lost her memory due to a severe head injury, and lived in a remote mountain village for more than 2 years. It wasn't until she happened to see a poster for my art exhibition that her memory gradually returned. The next day, I took her to see Frank. "Oh my God, it really is you, Mary." Frank stared in astonishment, eyes wide. "Frank, it's been a long time." She greeted him with a smile, exactly as I remembered. Frank pulled me aside and whispered, "Man, this is unbelievable, but I really believe it's her. Who else but Mary could call me by my childhood nickname so accurately? That was something only the two of you knew." A week later, Mary officially returned. We held a small welcome party for her. Her mother was so overwhelmed that she fainted, and when she woke up, she clung to her daughter and refused to let go. But that night, I noticed the first sign that something was off. Mary never ate mangoes because she was severely allergic. Yet the returned Mary absent-mindedly tasted a mango dessert and was perfectly fine. "Aren't you allergic to mangoes?" I asked. She paused for a moment, then quickly laughed and said, "Oh, that old Chinese doctor cured my allergy. He's really amazing." I nodded, but in my heart, I marked the first question mark. Is this really my wife? A month passed quickly, and Mary blended perfectly into our lives. She knew the location of every item in the house, remembered our shared memories, and could even accurately name friends we hadn't contacted in years. But those subtle feelings of discord kept growing. For example, the real Mary liked to listen to classical music, especially Debussy, while designing jewelry. But she would always unconsciously hum along to pop songs. Mary always habitually used her left hand to hold chopsticks, even though she knew it was wrong. She just couldn't change. But she was a standard right-handed user. The most obvious difference appeared that night when I accidentally caught her smoking in the bedroom. The real Mary hated the smell of smoke. Even when I came home from social events with a faint scent of cigarettes, she would frown. "When did you start smoking?" I stood at the doorway, my voice soft. She was clearly startled, hastily snuffing out the cigarette. This is a herbal cigarette for treating insomnia, prescribed by an old Chinese doctor." I nodded, not pressing further, but the doubts in my heart only grew deeper. The next day, I went to find Frank. "Help me check if, in the past 3 years, plastic surgery technology has advanced enough to achieve this level." Frank's eyes widened. "You mean, she's not Mary?" "I'm not sure, but there are always some things that don't add up." 2 days later, Frank brought news. High-end plastic surgery can make faces look similar, but it can't replicate the exact placement of scars or moles. And there's a limit to how well someone can imitate a voice. What if it was a twin? Frank shook his head. "Mary is an only child. We all know that." I decided not to show my feelings for now and to keep observing. A week later, Mary's mother came to my house with astonishing news. "George, Mary is going to have a baby," my mother-in-law told me excitedly. I stood there stunned. Before we got married, Mary had been diagnosed with uterine hypoplasia. The doctor had made it clear she could never get pregnant. This was our shared secret. Not even my mother-in-law knew. How do you know that?" I managed to ask. "Mary told me this morning. She said she already had a checkup. It's been 2 months. My mother-in-law happily grabbed my hand. "It's a blessing from above. Mary survived death, and now she can bring us new life." My heart sank to the bottom. This absolutely could not be Mary. That night, I dug out the hospital's diagnosis certificate in my study, which clearly stated the condition of Mary's uterus. But when I wanted to talk to Mary about it, I found her in the bedroom, excitedly discussing the decoration of the nursery with my mother-in-law. "Mary, could you come here for a moment?" I called her calmly. She followed me into the study, still wearing a blissful smile on her face. "Did you forget about this?" I handed her the diagnosis certificate. She took it and glanced at it, her face instantly turning pale. "George, I can explain." "Explain what?" "Explain that you're not Mary at all." Mother-in-law heard the commotion and walked in. "What's going on with you two?" "Mom, take a look at this." I handed her the proof. My mother-in-law read it, then looked at Mary in astonishment. "What's going on?" "Mary, you can't have children." "Of course she can," I sneered, "because she's not Mary at all." My mother-in-law's face changed dramatically. "What nonsense are you talking about?" "I can explain." She hurriedly grabbed my mother-in-law's hand. "That old Chinese doctor not only saved my life, but also cured my uterine problem. It's a miracle, truly." My mother-in-law looked at me, then at her, hesitating. "George, you're being too paranoid." My mother-in-law finally took her daughter's side. "Mary has come back with great difficulty. You should cherish her, not doubt her." "Yes, George, I know this is hard to accept, but miracles do happen." Tears welled up in her eyes. "Haven't we always wanted a child? Now we can finally have our own baby." I looked at her face, identical to Mary's, yet I became more certain in my heart. This woman was not my wife. "All right, I believe you." I smiled, deciding to go along with their story for now. Let's wait together for this miracle to happen. That night, I secretly contacted a private detective. My mother-in-law gladly accepted her daughter's explanation, even suggesting she move in with us to take care of Mary during her pregnancy. Outwardly, I agreed, but inside I grew even more wary. This was no coincidence. There had to be some kind of plot. Mom, haven't you always lived in Haicheng? Won't it be hard to get used to living here? I probed cautiously. For my grandson, I'm willing to endure any inconvenience, my mother-in-law said firmly. I noticed a fleeting unnatural expression on Mary's face. Could the truth be connected to my mother-in-law? On the third day after my mother-in-law moved in, I discovered more suspicious details. For example, the real Mary never drank coffee, but she and my mother-in-law often enjoyed it together. Also, Mary's favorite movie was Roman Holiday, but she claimed to prefer Titanic. The strangest thing is, Mary used to despise her cousin Tom when she was alive, but now he visits frequently and chats and laughs with Mary as if they're old friends. I told Frank about these discoveries. Buddy, things are getting more and more suspicious, Frank frowned. Are you sure you want to keep going like this? Why not just expose her directly? It's not the right time yet. I want to find out what they're really after. The private detective's investigation also made progress. The so-called old Chinese doctor who had saved Mary did not exist at all, and Mary's whereabouts over the past 3 years were completely untraceable. More importantly, the private detective uncovered a shocking fact during the investigation. Mary's cousin Tom was deeply in debt from gambling, and the painting Eternity under my name, worth over $6 million, was his only hope for quick cash. They're after your painting, the private detective asserted, and this fake Mary is likely a professional identity fraudster, hard to win your trust. I took a deep breath and decided to take the initiative. That afternoon, I pretended to go out, but secretly returned home and hid in the study. Sure enough, Mary and her cousin Tom were whispering to each other in the living room. It's taking too long, Tom said irritably. How much longer until he sells the painting? Don't worry, she soothed him. I'm already pregnant, and now he completely believes I'm Mary. In a little while, I'll say I want to move to a better neighborhood for the sake of the baby, and then we'll naturally need to sell the painting to raise money. You're really pregnant? That wasn't part of the plan. It was an accident, but it works to our advantage. George wants a child so badly. Does Annie know the truth? She only knows we're trying to scam money, not the specific plan. But she hates George, thinks he caused her daughter's death, so she's more than happy to help. I clenched my fists. So my mother-in-law had always believed that Mary's accident was somehow my fault. In fact, we did argue over something trivial that day, and Mary stormed out in anger. I didn't try to stop her. But I never imagined it would be the last time I'd see her. You don't actually have feelings for George, do you? Tom suddenly asked. She was silent for a moment. It's just part of the job. Besides, I owe you, and I won't go back on my word. Good then. Don't forget how we're splitting the money once we get it. Their conversation confirmed my suspicions. This was all an elaborate scheme, with my eternity as the target. In the days that followed, I pretended everything was normal while secretly making preparations. I contacted the police, arranged for evidence-gathering equipment, and found the last piece Mary had left before she died, a silver necklace that had never been made public, engraved with an anniversary date only the two of us knew. 2 weeks later, my art exhibition was held as scheduled. As planned, Mary brought up the idea of moving, hinting that I could sell Eternity. I pretended to agree and said I would auction the painting on the last day of the exhibition. This is a surprise I prepared for you, I said on the eve of the exhibition, taking out a delicate box. To celebrate the new life we're about to begin. She opened the box in surprise, and inside was the silver necklace. It's beautiful, thank you. She smiled as she prepared to put it on. Wait, I stopped her. Aren't you going to look at the engraving on the back? She turned the necklace over, and her face suddenly went pale. What's wrong? Don't you like it? I asked, feigning ignorance. No, I really like it. It's just... I'm a bit moved. She forced a smile, but didn't know how to explain that she couldn't recognize the significance of that date. See you tomorrow. Get some good rest, and don't forget to wear this necklace. I kissed her forehead and whispered in her ear, after all, this is your final design. Her body visibly stiffened for a moment, but she kept smiling. Of course, I cherish it very much. Tomorrow, the truth will come to light. On the day of the exhibition, the place was packed with people. My painting, Eternity, was displayed in the most prominent spot, right next to the last batch of jewelry designs Mary had created before her death. Mary held my arm, flawlessly playing the role of my wife as always. She had even gone out of her way to wear Mary's favorite white dress and the silver necklace I had given her last night. My mother-in-law and Tom were there too. The three of them exchanged glances from time to time, clearly waiting for the perfect moment. Frank appeared as planned, pretending to be extremely interested in eternity and asking me about the auction details. The auction will begin promptly at 4 in the afternoon, I replied with a smile. This painting means a great deal to me, and I hope it finds someone who truly appreciates it. Mary immediately chimed in. Yes, although it's hard to part with it, this is a necessary decision for our future. I noticed she glanced at Tom, who gave a barely perceptible nod. At 3:30 in the afternoon, the projector in the center of the exhibition hall lit up. This was the special segment I had arranged. Ladies and gentlemen, I stood in front of eternity. Before the auction begins, I'd like to share a little story about this painting. Mary's photo appeared on the projection screen, a group picture from her last birthday party before she passed away. 3 years ago, my wife Mary died in an accident. I created this painting, Eternity, in her memory. The woman in the painting has her back to the viewer, forever gazing into the distance, symbolizing a longing I can never reach. A soft sigh rippled through the crowd. Mary stood beside me, matching my words with a sorrowful expression. However, a month ago, a miracle happened. I turned to look at Mary. My wife came back. The whole room erupted in astonishment, and many people curiously sized up, Mary. This is my wife, Mary. I took her hand and stepped forward. Back from the dead, it's truly the greatest blessing heaven could have given me. She smiled and nodded to everyone, while my mother-in-law and Tom stood by with smug expressions. However, my tone suddenly shifted. Amidst my joy, a question arose. Is she really Mary? The entire room fell silent. Mary's hand trembled slightly in my palm. So, I did some investigating. The projector switched to a set of comparison photos. On the left was the real Mary. On the right was a photo of her. They look exactly the same, don't they? But I clicked the remote, and the photo was enlarged, the details highlighted. The position of the piercing on the left ear was slightly different, the arch of the eyebrows subtly varied, and the fine lines at the corners of the eyes ran in different directions. These are details that even professional plastic surgery cannot fully replicate. Mary tried to pull her hand away, but I held on tightly. My mother-in-law and Tom also began to grow anxious, glancing toward the exit. More importantly, the real Mary has a feature that cannot be copied. I turned to Mary. The necklace I gave you last night has a date engraved on the back. Can you tell everyone what that date is? She opened her mouth, but no words came out. That was the due date of our first child, the one we lost. I spoke softly, my voice trembling with emotion. Mary designed this necklace to commemorate the baby we never got to meet. The date was our secret, only Mary and I knew. The room fell utterly silent. Mary turned deathly pale, my mother-in-law's eyes widened, and Tom had already started edging toward the door. What surprised me even more, I continued, was that the real Mary could never get pregnant due to an underdeveloped uterus. Yet this, Mary claims she's already 2 months along. I let go of her hand and took a step back. So, who are you really? A flicker of despair flashed in Mary's eyes, but she quickly regained her composure. I am Mary, it's just that old Chinese doctor. The non-existent old Chinese doctor, right? I sneered. Just like the non-existent amnesia, the non-existent miraculous recovery. I turned toward the projection screen. Let's see the truth. The screen played the secretly recorded video of her conversation with Tom, their discussion on how to swindle eternity, clearly audible. This isn't. She tried to explain, but my mother-in-law had already rushed forward. Who are you really? My mother-in-law screamed. You're not my daughter? Auntie, stop pretending, I said calmly. You know she's not Mary. You just wanted to get back at me, didn't you? My mother-in-law's face turned pale. I didn't know she was going to impersonate Mary. Tom just said he needed help to scam some money. Police. Don't move. Several plainclothes officers emerged from the crowd, blocking Tom as he tried to escape. Amid the chaos, Mary took the opportunity to shove me aside and run toward the exit. I chased after her and caught up in the parking lot. Tell me, who are you really? She finally stopped, turned to face me, tears welling in her eyes. My name is Luna. I'm an actress. Tom found me and said if I helped trick you out of a painting, he'd give me $1 million. I needed the money for my sister's medical treatment. Why did they choose me? Why Mary? She shook her head. I don't know. They gave me a lot of information, photos, videos, even your chat logs. I was just following the script. The police arrived and took her away. I stood where I was, gazing at the distant sky, my heart a tumult of emotions. Back in the exhibition hall, the crowd had already dispersed, leaving only Frank and a few police officers. It's all been cleared up, Frank walked over. Tom owed money to loan sharks and was desperate. Your mother-in-law always resented you for not saving Mary, so she helped them plan the whole thing. I walked up to Eternity, gently caressing the back of the woman in the painting. Mary, I can finally give you an answer. The police left with the evidence. Frank patted me on the shoulder. What do you plan to do next? I took a deep breath. Prepare for the final painting. What will it be called? The Pursuit, I said softly. This time, I'll paint her face, not just her back. After the case was solved, my life seemed to return to where it was 3 years ago. Eternity was temporarily held by the court as crucial evidence. Tom and Luna were arrested for fraud, and my mother-in-law was investigated as an accomplice. The prosecution wants you to testify in court, the officer called to inform me. The trial is scheduled for early next month. I agreed, though I was utterly exhausted inside. After exposing the deception, I thought I would feel the thrill of revenge, but what I felt instead was a profound emptiness. Those days spent with Mary that month had allowed me to feel a trace of warmth in life again, even if that warmth was born of lies. Frank often came to see me, worried I might fall into despair once more. I told him not to worry, that I was working on a new piece, The Pursuit. Are you really going to paint Mary's face from the front? Frank asked curiously. For the past 3 years, you've always refused to do that. It's time, I replied. We can't live in the past forever. I moved out of the apartment I had shared with Mary and returned to the old house in the suburbs, the place where the real Mary and I had first made our home. The dust-laden memories in the house brought me both pain and comfort. Mary's studio remained just as she had left it, design sketches scattered across the table, unfinished jewelry drafts pinned to the drawing board. One afternoon, while sorting through Mary's belongings, I discovered an encrypted external hard drive. After several attempts, I finally unlocked it using our wedding anniversary as the password. Inside were backups of Mary's design works, along with some personal photos and videos. One folder in particular caught my attention. Inside a folder named Plan was a series of jewelry design sketches, labeled George's Birthday Special Project. It was then I remembered that, in the months before Mary passed away, she often spoke mysteriously about giving me an unparalleled birthday surprise. Leafing through these design drafts, I couldn't help but be moved to tears. Mary had planned to design a jewelry collection inspired by my paintings over the years, with each piece corresponding to a representative work from my artistic career. The last page was a sketch of a ring, with a dark red stone set in the center, its edges adorned with tiny diamonds, closely resembling the sunrise in my early work, Dawn. This is blood amber? I examined the notes carefully, confirming the name of this rare gemstone. Mary's designs had always been bold, but blood amber is extremely rare in the Chinese market, almost impossible to acquire. How did she obtain such a material? As I continued searching, I found a series of email correspondence screenshots. Mary had actually contacted a gemstone dealer in Myanmar, commissioning the blood amber specifically for this ring. The last email showed that the gem had already been shipped, but the date was exactly 1 week before Mary's death. I immediately called Frank. Help me check if there was a package sent from Myanmar 3 years ago, addressed to Mary. 2 days later, Frank brought news. The package did exist, but since no one signed for it, it was returned. However, according to the shipping records, it was resent a month ago, this time addressed to you. What? I was completely confused. I haven't received any package. Check your old apartment? Frank suggested. Back at my old apartment, the manager told me there was indeed a package, but it had been signed for by Mary. She said it was a surprise for you, so she didn't notify you, the manager explained. This meant Luna had taken the blood amber. I rushed to the detention center and requested to see Luna. Separated by glass, she looked much more haggard than the last time we met, but still wore that face so similar to Mary's. What are you doing here? She asked coldly. A month ago, You signed for a package from Myanmar. There was a blood amber inside. I want to know where it is." She looked surprised. "How did you know?" "Tom asked me to sign for it. He said it was some precious gem. He took it." My heart sank. Tom was deep in gambling debt. A precious blood amber would be a windfall for him. He had probably sold it long ago. "That blood amber is very important to me," I said softly. "It was the last gift my wife left me." Luna was silent for a moment, then suddenly said, "Maybe it's not that bad. Tom said the stone has flaws, its value is greatly reduced, and he hasn't found a suitable buyer yet." Hope was rekindled. If Tom hadn't sold the blood amber yet, maybe there was still a chance to get it back. "Do you know where he might hide it?" Luna hesitated for a moment. "He has a safe deposit box in a self-storage facility on the east side of the city." After getting the address, I immediately contacted the officer in charge of the case and explained the situation. Since Tom was involved in a large sum of money, the police quickly approved the search request. "Mr. George, we've found the safe deposit box," the officer said over the phone. "Inside, we did find the blood amber you described, as well as some other evidence." A few hours later, I retrieved the blood amber at the police station. It was even more beautiful than I had imagined. Within the dark red core, wisps of mist seemed to swirl, shifting strangely under the light. This was the birthday gift Mary had so carefully chosen for me, waiting for 3 years. Back home, I carefully placed the blood amber beside the canvas of the pursuit. The painting was already more than half finished, Mary's face emerging from the blur into clarity, yet it still felt like something was missing. Watching the blood amber glimmer faintly under the light, I suddenly understood how I should complete the painting. The creation of the pursuit entered its final stage. I decided to break convention and incorporate the blood amber into the artwork. This would not only be a portrait, but a hybrid piece that fused painting with the art of jewelry. "Are you sure you want to do this?" Frank frowned. "That blood amber is priceless." "That's exactly why," I said firmly. "Mary chose it for me. She wanted to inspire an unparalleled masterpiece. I will fulfill her wish." For 2 whole weeks, I worked day and night, neglecting sleep and food. I cut the blood amber into thin slices and inlaid them at the spot of Mary's eyes on the canvas, making her gaze truly come alive. I used a special technique to blend the surrounding paint, creating a harmonious transition with the gemstone. From certain angles, the entire painting seemed to be imbued with life, and Mary's expression would shift depending on where the viewer stood. On the day I finished the piece, Frank brought news. Luna had been sentenced to 3 years in prison, but due to her good attitude in confessing, she might serve only a year and a half. Tom, involved in multiple fraud cases, was sentenced to 7 years. My mother-in-law, as an accomplice, received a suspended sentence. "The case is finally over," Frank said. "Are you planning to exhibit your painting?" "Yes. Next month there will be a solo exhibition at the National Art Museum, and The Pursuit will be the grand finale." The curator couldn't stop praising this piece, believing it represents the innovative direction of contemporary art and marks the pinnacle of my career. Indeed, this painting, which incorporates Mary's jewelry design concepts, is in some sense a creation we made together. On the eve of the exhibition, I checked the arrangement in the gallery alone one last time, making sure every piece was perfectly lit and positioned. When I reached The Pursuit, I couldn't help but stop and gaze at it. Mary's face was vividly lifelike, her eyes inlaid with blood amber gleaming under the spotlight, as if she were smiling at me. For the first time in 3 years, I faced her directly, no longer painting only her back. "Mr. George," a stranger's voice called from behind. "Sorry to disturb you, but the gallery has been cleared." He turned around to see a young woman dressed in the museum's staff uniform. "And you are?" "I'm the new curator, responsible for security in your exhibition area," she explained with a smile. "I really like your work, especially this piece, The Pursuit." "Thank you." I nodded. "I'll be leaving soon." She didn't leave, but continued to gaze at the painting. "That red gem is beautiful, almost as if it's alive." "It's blood amber," I explained, "a very rare gemstone." "I know," she said softly, "top-grade blood amber from Myanmar, containing plant fossils, extremely rare." I looked at her in surprise. "You know a lot about jewelry?" She smiled. "I studied jewelry design. I'm just working part-time here." For some reason, Mary suddenly came to mind. She, too, had an almost obsessive passion for and expertise in gemstones. "If you don't mind me asking, who is the woman in this painting?" she asked. "My wife," I replied, She passed away 3 years ago. She was a jewelry designer. I'm very sorry, she said sincerely, then gestured toward the blood amber. This gem must mean a great deal to you. It was the last birthday gift she chose for me before she died, but I only found it recently. She nodded thoughtfully. Setting it into her portrait is the best way to remember her. For some reason, talking with this unfamiliar woman brought me a strange sense of calm. Perhaps it was her love for jewelry that reminded me of Mary. Sorry, I have to continue my rounds. She glanced at her watch. See you tomorrow, Mr. George. See you tomorrow, I replied, watching her leave. On the way home, I felt an unusual peace. The completion of The Pursuit seemed to mark the end of my search for Mary as well. Not forgetting, but remembering her forever in another way. The next day, the exhibition's opening ceremony attracted numerous figures from the art world and the media. The Pursuit undoubtedly became the center of attention, with people marveling at this innovative form of artistic expression. Amid the crowd, I noticed that curator standing aside, watching as well. Sunlight streamed through the skylight of the gallery, falling upon her, and for a fleeting moment, I thought I saw Mary's shadow. No, I shook my head, warning myself not to be deceived by mere resemblance. There would never be another Mary in this world, just as there would never be another unique blood amber. After the exhibition, The Pursuit was purchased by an anonymous collector for an astronomical price. I donated all the proceeds to a foundation supporting students in jewelry design, establishing a scholarship in Mary's name. Life slowly moved forward, and I began to accept new commissions and create new works. Occasionally, I would think of that curator with a unique insight into jewelry, wondering if she was still working at the art museum. Until one day, I received an email from HL. There were no words, only an image. A sketch of a ring design, the style strikingly similar to Mary's unfinished series. My heart raced as I replied immediately. Who is this? The response came quickly. Yesterday, you brushed past me by the cafe on the street corner, but you didn't recognize me. If you want to know more, wait for me at the museum entrance at noon tomorrow. Is it that librarian? How could she have a design so reminiscent of Mary's style? Filled with anxiety and anticipation, I decided to accept the invitation and find out for myself. The next day at noon, I arrived at the art museum half an hour early. The sun was shining, and small groups of visitors were coming and going from the exhibition hall. But there was no sign of the mysterious person. Just as I began to suspect this might be some kind of prank, a faint trace of perfume drifted by, a scent unfamiliar to me, yet it inexplicably reminded me of Mary. Mr. George, thank you for coming. The voice behind me made me turn around. It was the curator. Today, she wasn't wearing her uniform, but a simple white dress, completely different from Mary's style when she was alive. Did you send the email? I asked directly. She nodded. There are some things I want to tell you, but not here. Will you come with me? We walked through the small park beside the art museum and arrived at a secluded cafe. The whole time, I kept observing her. Her mannerisms, the way she walked, none of it resembled Mary. Yet her sensitivity to detail and her focused attention gave me a strange sense of familiarity. Who are you, really? The moment we sat down, I couldn't wait to ask. My name is Nicole. She looked me straight in the eye. I'm Mary's student. This answer caught me off guard. Mary had indeed taught jewelry design part-time at the Design Academy before she passed away, but she had never mentioned having any particularly close students. I took her advanced design class the year before she passed, Nicole explained. Her guidance benefited me for a lifetime. That still doesn't explain why your designs resemble her style so much, I said, half convinced. Nicole took a folder out of her bag. These are all notes from Ms. Nicole's class and her feedback on my work. You can look at the handwriting and confirm that it's really hers. I carefully examined the materials. It was indeed Mary's handwriting. There were even traces of the pale purple ink she habitually used. Before Ms. Nicole passed away, she was guiding me on my graduation project, Nicole continued. The theme was interwoven light and shadow, blending Eastern and Western aesthetic elements. She gave me a lot of valuable advice and even showed me a sketch from a private project she was working on at the time. George's special birthday project? I blurted out. Nicole's eyes widened in surprise. You know about it? I only found out recently. I briefly explained the origin of the blood amber. I knew that blood amber would eventually find its way back to you. Nicole said with a smile. Nicole always said it was a destined gift. Is that why you contacted me? Because you saw the blood amber? Nicole was silent for a moment, as if choosing her words carefully. Not entirely. After Nicole passed away, I've been trying to carry on the design philosophy she taught me. Some time ago, I happened to see the news about your eternity being stolen, and then I saw someone impersonating Nicole. I thought I should tell you a few things. She took a letter out of her bag. This is the last letter Nicole gave me after class before she passed away. She said if her surprise plan went smoothly, I should show you this letter. If anything went wrong and she was gone, I should still make sure you see it. I took the envelope. It was indeed Mary's handwriting, and it read, "To my dearest husband." The envelope had already been opened. I didn't know what was in the letter at the time. I just kept it as Nicole instructed, Nicole explained. It wasn't until I saw the news that I opened it. I hope you won't blame me. I carefully took out the letter paper and unfolded it to read. Dear George, if you are reading this letter, perhaps my surprise plan has gone awry. Don't worry, it's just that the plan has changed, and the form of the gift may be different now. The blood amber I picked for you is said to be known as the Eye of Rebirth. Legend has it that looking at the world through it reveals truths that are often overlooked. I hope it can become a turning point in your artistic career, leading you to see new possibilities. All these years, your paintings have always depicted backs, as if you're afraid to face something head-on. I hope this gemstone will give you the courage to paint the front, to capture true emotions. No matter what happens, please remember, love does not disappear, it merely changes form, like this blood amber, which, after millions of years, transforms from resin into a gem, yet still shines. Forever loving you, Mary. The handwriting became a bit messy at the end, as if written in a hurry. I stroked the paper, as if I could feel Mary's emotions at that moment. Thank you, I said, my voice choked with emotion. This means a lot to me. You're welcome. I'm just fulfilling Ms. Nicole's request, Nicole said with a smile. Actually, there's one more thing I'd like to ask your help with. What is it? I'd like to apply for the Mary Scholarship you established, she said, taking a design portfolio out of her bag. This is my graduation project, combining Ms. Nicole's ideas with my own innovations. As I flipped through the portfolio, I was surprised to find that while these designs bore traces of Mary's influence, they also possessed a unique style and innovative touches. In particular, a series called Metamorphosis cleverly combined jewelry with transformable elements, allowing the pieces to change form according to the wearer's mood and occasion. This is outstanding, I praised sincerely. Mary would be proud of you. A hint of joy flashed in Nicole's eyes. Really? I've always worried I couldn't live up to her expectations. You've already moved beyond the learning stage and developed your own style. That's exactly what she hoped to see. As we talked, sunlight streamed through the window and fell on Nicole. In that moment, I seemed to understand something. When Mary spoke of love changing its form, perhaps she wasn't just referring to the blood amber, but also to her passion for art and its legacy. Luna tried to impersonate Mary by mimicking her appearance, but she could never truly replicate who she was. Nicole, on the other hand, looked nothing like Mary, yet she inherited a part of her artistic vision and spirit. Perhaps this is the true gift Mary left me, not the blood amber, but a new possibility, a path out of the past. Nicole's graduation exhibition was held in a small gallery. Though the space was modest, it was exquisitely arranged. Her works were divided into 3 series, representing the past, the present, and the future, forming a complete narrative. This is a brilliant idea, I sincerely praised. From tradition to contemporary and then to the future, it showcases the evolution and possibilities of jewelry design. Nicole smiled and nodded. This was inspired by teacher Nicole. She always says that good design should look back at history, be grounded in the present, and look forward to the future. As I walked through the exhibition hall, I noticed a special display case in the corner, containing only one piece, a seemingly simple ring with a small red gemstone set in the center. This is. I leaned in to read the label, which said, in memory, dedicated to teacher Mary. Yes, I made it from a small piece of blood amber I bought with my own savings, Nicole explained. It can't compare to the quality of yours, but it's also from Myanmar. I examined the design of the ring closely. Clean, powerful lines, with fine silver threads encircling the blood amber, as if protecting the central gem, yet also seeming to radiate light outward. This is very similar to Mary's final design style, I said softly, but it also has your own unique touch. I wanted to create a piece that could both commemorate teacher Nicole and showcase my own style, Nicole explained. The blood amber represents her influence, while the outer design is the direction of my own development. The exhibition attracted quite a few industry insiders, including some well-known figures from the jewelry design world. After viewing the exhibition, an older female designer approached Nicole and offered her an internship opportunity. I stood by, genuinely happy for Nicole. In the evening, as the exhibition was drawing to a close, Frank arrived as well. Seeing me with Nicole, he gave me a knowing smile. "New friend?" he asked me quietly. "Mary's student," I explained simply. "Very talented." Frank nodded without asking further questions. After touring the exhibition, he gave high praise to Nicole's work. It blends traditional and modern elements, demonstrating both technical skill and artistic expression, quite rare. Nicole thanked him politely. This wouldn't have been possible without the guidance of teacher Nicole and teacher George. After the exhibition, the three of us went to a nearby restaurant for dinner. During the meal, Frank talked about recent trends in the art market, while Nicole shared her insights on contemporary jewelry design. The conversation was light and pleasant, and I realized it had been a long time since I had relaxed and chatted with others like this. After a few rounds of drinks, Frank received an urgent call and left early. Only Nicole and I remained in the restaurant, and the atmosphere suddenly became a bit quiet. "Mr. George," Nicole hesitated for a moment before speaking. "I've always had a question I wanted to ask you." "What is it?" "After you finished the pursuit, what are you planning to create next?" The question caught me off guard. To be honest, ever since the pursuit, I haven't had any new inspiration. That painting seemed to have drained all my emotions and creativity. "I haven't decided yet," I answered honestly. "It might take some time to find a new direction." Nicole nodded thoughtfully. Nicole once said that the hardest thing for an artist isn't creating a stunning masterpiece, but finding a way forward after reaching the peak. She really did say that, I recalled with a smile. Mary always saw further than I did. "Maybe," Nicole said softly, "you could try a new direction that combines your work with jewelry design? Like in The Pursuit, but taking it even further." I recalled what Mary mentioned in her letter about seeing new possibilities, and suddenly I was inspired. "You mean creating a series of works that combine painting and jewelry?" "Exactly," Nicole said excitedly. "Your paintings create emotion in two-dimensional space, while jewelry gives it tangible form in the three-dimensional world. The combination of the two would have an astonishing effect." The more we talked, the more engaged we became, even sketching a few concept designs on the restaurant's napkins. Nicole's ideas were fresh and bold, perfectly aligning with my artistic vision, yet bringing a new perspective. As we left the restaurant, Nicole suddenly said, "I have to confess something." I looked at her in confusion. "I reached out to you not only to deliver Nicole's letter, but also for a personal reason. I hope to learn from you," she said candidly. "I want to become a designer like Nicole, someone who not only creates beautiful works but also perfectly blends art with emotion." Her sincerity moved me. "You're already on that path, and you're doing very well." "Then, may I consult you often?" she asked a little nervously. Of course, I'd be delighted. On the way home, a series of new works already began to take shape in my mind. A cross-disciplinary art that fuses painting and jewelry, both as a tribute to Mary and as a new starting point in my artistic career. That night, I had a dream. In the dream, Mary stood in a halo of blood-red light, smiling at me and saying, "See, I knew you would find a new direction." When I woke up, I got out of bed immediately and began sketching for the new series. I decided to name it Rebirth. Not only representing the ancient life forever preserved in blood amber, but also symbolizing the rebirth of my artistic career, as well as the inheritance and development of Mary's artistic vision. A week later, I submitted a new series proposal to the gallery and received an enthusiastic response. The curator even suggested holding a special exhibition themed Between Dimensions, a dialogue between painting and jewelry. For this project, I invited Nicole to join the team as a jewelry design consultant. She had just graduated from design school and was both excited and nervous about the opportunity. "Am I really up to the task?" she asked me in the studio. "You understand Mary's design philosophy better than anyone," I assured her. "That's exactly what I need." In the days that followed, we worked at a feverish pace. We created during the day and discussed at night, sometimes even working through until dawn. Nicole's ideas flowed endlessly, and I transformed those thoughts into concrete artistic expressions. In the process, I rediscovered the pure joy of creation that I hadn't felt in a long time. One late night, when we finally finished the design for our first piece, Nicole clapped her hands excitedly. "This is amazing. Teacher Nicole will definitely love it." At the mention of Mary, she suddenly realized her slip and looked at me nervously. "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to." "It's all right," I said with a smile. "I think Mary really would like it. She always hoped I could step out of my comfort zone and try new ways of expressing myself." Nicole let out a sigh of relief, then hesitantly asked, "Professor George, may I ask you a personal question?" "What is it?" "When you faced the woman impersonating Professor Nicole, how did you see through her? I mean, from the news reports, she seemed like an exact copy of Professor Nicole." I pondered for a moment. Superficial resemblance is easy to achieve, but a true personality cannot be duplicated. Mary's perception of art, her attitude toward life, the way she handled details, these were all unique. Just like a work of art, Nicole mused, no matter how perfect a replica is, it can never capture the soul of the original. Exactly. We worked through the night again, and finally established the overall framework for the Rebirth series. 7 pieces, each blending elements of painting and jewelry, together telling a story of loss and recovery, death and rebirth. As our collaboration deepened, my relationship with Nicole gradually shifted from teacher and student to partners, both mentor and friend. Sometimes, when the light traced the gentle contours of her focused profile, I would unconsciously think of Mary. But soon, I realized that this association wasn't due to any physical resemblance, but rather that same dedication and passion for art. "George, you look much more spirited lately," Frank remarked at a gathering. "It's been a while since I've seen you so full of life." "Yeah, the new project has helped me rediscover the joy of creating." "Nicole's a good girl," Frank said meaningfully. "Talented, and she really understands you." I understood his implication, but just smiled without responding. There was indeed a special understanding between Nicole and me, but it was more rooted in our shared passion for art than anything else. At least for now. The creation of the Rebirth series took 3 months, longer than expected, but the results were stunning. Each piece was a perfect fusion of painting and jewelry art, offering both the pleasure of viewing as a flat image and the discovery of 3-dimensional effects brought by the jewelry elements from different angles. A week before the exhibition opened, I received an unexpected visitor, Luna. She had served her sentence and was released early. She looked much more haggard than the last time we met, but her eyes were clearer. "I came to apologize to you in person." She stood at the studio door, her voice low, "for everything I have done." I didn't respond immediately, but simply invited her in to sit down. "I know that an apology can't make up for the loss," she continued, "but I want you to know that I truly regret it." "How is your sister's illness?" I asked. She looked up in surprise. You know. I guessed. "You said you needed money for a reason, and I think that must have been true." "Yes," she nodded. "My sister's surgery was a success, and now she's fully recovered. For the past 3 years, I've been thinking about how to make up for my mistakes, even though I may never be able to." I was silent for a moment, then said, in a way, your appearance actually helped me." "What do you mean?" "It forced me to confront the past, to re-examine my memories with Mary, and ultimately to find a way forward." I pointed to the sketches of the Rebirth series on the wall and briefly explained this new project. Luna listened quietly, a look of genuine respect in her eyes. "I'm glad you were able to find a new beginning from that nightmare," she said at last. "I hope I can find my own path to rebirth as well." As she left, she handed me a small package. "These are some simple pieces of jewelry I made in prison. The craftsmanship is rough, but each one represents my remorse and blessings. I hope you can accept them." Opening the package, I found several small trinkets handmade from fine wire and colorful glass beads. Though simple, it was clear the creator had poured their heart into them. Nicole happened to come into the studio at that moment. Seeing the trinkets, she asked curiously, "What are these?" I told her about Luna's visit. "You forgave her?" Nicole was a bit surprised. "Not exactly forgiveness," I said thoughtfully. "It's more like understanding. Everyone has their own hardships and choices. What's important is how we learn and grow from our mistakes." Nicole nodded pensively, picking up a piece of jewelry to examine it closely. The craftsmanship is rough, but the concept is ingenious. This person seems to have a talent for design. Perhaps, I said, everyone has the possibility of being reborn. On the day of the exhibition opening, numerous figures from the art and jewelry worlds gathered together. The Rebirth series received unprecedented acclaim. Critics called it a model of cross-disciplinary art, and the gallery owner was overjoyed, announcing plans for a nationwide tour. In the crowd, I saw Luna. She was dressed simply, standing quietly in a corner, admiring the exhibits. Our eyes met in the air. She nodded slightly, then walked away. "Who was that?" Nicole asked, standing beside me. "Someone searching for Rebirth," I replied. Nicole seemed to understand and asked no more. We stood side by side before the pursuit, watching the blood amber refract a strange light under the lamps, like the silent burning of life's flame. "Thank you," I whispered to Nicole. "Without you, this series might never have come into being." "It was your philosophy that guided us, Teacher Nicole," she replied modestly. "I was just fortunate enough to be the messenger." In that moment, I suddenly understood the true meaning of what Mary had written in her letter. Love has changed its form. Love exists not only in memory and longing, but also in inheritance and innovation, shining brightly in every spark of artistic creation. And I, at last, had learned how to begin anew after loss, to embrace rebirth while still searching. The success of the exhibition exceeded everyone's expectations. In just 1 month, the Rebirth series was reported on by major media outlets and even attracted the attention of the international art world. A renowned auction house extended an olive branch to me, hoping to include several pieces in their annual highlight auction. "This is an unprecedented opportunity," Frank said excitedly. "If the deal goes through, you'll become a top player in the contemporary art market." I wasn't particularly concerned with commercial success, but I did feel the joy of having my work widely recognized. More importantly, this series opened up a new artistic path for me, freeing me from the creative shackles of the past 3 years. Nicole benefited as well. As the project's jewelry design consultant, she received high praise from the industry. Several well-known jewelry brands reached out to her, hoping she would join their design teams. "Which offer are you planning to accept?" One night, as we were tidying up the studio together, I asked her. "To be honest, I'm still hesitating." Nicole paused her work. "These are all great opportunities, but..." "But what?" "But I want to keep working with you." She looked straight into my eyes. "Rebirth is just the beginning, isn't it?" Her candor surprised me a little. Indeed, the success of this series had opened up many new creative possibilities for us, but I wasn't sure if I should continue such a close working relationship. "You should consider your own career development," I said tactfully. "These opportunities are very rare for young designers." Nicole seemed to sense my hesitation and nodded gently. "I understand." In the days that followed, we were both busy and rarely had the chance to talk alone. A week later, Nicole told me she had decided to accept an invitation from a French jewelry brand and would be going to Paris to work for 2 years. "Congratulations," I said sincerely. "It's a very good choice." "Thank you," she replied with a smile, though a fleeting, elusive emotion flashed in her eyes. "I think this is the best arrangement for both of us." Before Nicole left, we held a small farewell party. Frank, the curator, and a few mutual friends came. The atmosphere was warm, tinged with a hint of sadness. After a few rounds of drinks, Frank found an opportunity to pull me aside. "Are you really going to just let her go like this?" "What do you mean?" I pretended not to understand. "Don't play dumb, man," Frank said bluntly. "You have feelings for her. That's obvious." "That's just professional rapport," I argued. "Is that so?" Frank looked at me meaningfully. "Then why have you been so distracted ever since she decided to go to France?" I was at a loss for words. In fact, these past few days I had indeed felt an inexplicable sense of loss, but I kept telling myself it was only because I had lost an excellent partner. "I know what you're worried about." Frank lowered his voice. "You feel like you're letting Mary down, don't you?" I remained silent. He had touched upon the deepest concern in my heart. "Mary has been gone for 3 years now." Frank gently patted my shoulder. "She would want you to be happy." After the party ended, I walked Nicole home. The night was tranquil as water, and the city lights flowed around us. "Thank you for your help and guidance these past few months." Nicole stopped at the entrance of her apartment building. This experience has meant so much to me. I should be thanking you, I said sincerely. Without you, the Rebirth series would never have been completed. We fell into silence, as if both searching for the right words to say goodbye. My flight is the morning after tomorrow, Nicole finally said. I still have some things to take care of tomorrow. So, this is probably the last time we'll see each other. 2 years will pass quickly. I tried to make my voice sound light. Paris is a beautiful city. You'll like it there. She nodded, a complex emotion flickering in her eyes. Professor George, there's something I've always wanted to tell you, but never found the right opportunity. What is it? I chose to study jewelry design because I saw Nicole's works. She took a deep breath, or more precisely, because I saw the pieces Nicole designed for you. The way she perfectly fused love and art moved me deeply. I didn't know that, I said in surprise. I've always hoped that one day I could be like Nicole, creating art filled with emotion. Nicole continued, her words coming faster, as if afraid she might lose her courage. But now I realize that what I want even more is to create for a specific person, just like Nicole created for you. I understood her implication, and my heart suddenly began to race. Nicole, please don't respond, she gently interrupted me. I just wanted you to know before I leave. No matter how you feel right now, remember that starting over is not a betrayal of the past, but a way of cherishing life. With that, she rose up on her tiptoes and softly kissed my cheek, then quickly turned and walked into the apartment building, leaving me standing alone in the night, my mind in turmoil. After returning home, I tossed and turned, unable to sleep, replaying Nicole's words and that gentle kiss over and over in my mind. Suddenly, I remembered a small box in the study, where Mary's last complete letter was kept, a letter I had found while sorting through her belongings. But at the time, overwhelmed by grief, I never had the courage to open. Now, I finally mustered the courage to walk into the study and retrieve that delicate little box from the depths of the drawer. Inside lay a pale pink letter, bearing Mary's familiar handwriting. Dearest George, by the time you read this letter, you may find yourself at a crossroads in life, hesitating between moving forward or staying where you are. My greatest wish is that you can move bravely through life, as freely as your brush glides across the canvas. Love is not a shackle, but a liberation. Memory is not a burden, but a source of strength. If one day you meet someone who can rekindle the light in your eyes, please don't hesitate because of your longing for me. True love is wishing happiness for the other, even if there is no longer a place for oneself in that happiness. Remember, the days we loved each other were complete, with no need for regrets. And now, it's time to paint a new picture, my beloved. Forever loving you. Mary. Tears blurred my vision. It was as if Mary had foreseen my current situation and had already given me her blessing. She was always like this, always able to see further and more clearly than I could. At that moment, I made up my mind. Early the next morning, I drove straight to Nicole's apartment. Professor George? Nicole opened the door in surprise, clearly not expecting me. I have something to say to you. I looked her straight in the eyes, not as your teacher, but as George. I handed her Mary's letter. Nicole read it carefully, her expression shifting from surprise to being moved, and finally, her eyes grew moist. She truly was an extraordinary woman, Nicole said softly, handing the letter back to me. Yes, she was. I nodded. That's exactly why I believe her words. Nicole, cancel your plans for Paris. Stay and continue our collaboration, will you? Nicole looked at me in shock. Are you serious? I've never been more serious, I said quietly. Rebirth is not just the name of an artwork, it's a possibility in life. Are you willing to explore that possibility with me? Her answer was a firm embrace, warm and real, like the first ray of sunlight after a long winter. In that moment, I felt as if Mary was somewhere, smiling down on us, blessing this new beginning. Life is like that blood amber, enduring countless ages of change and sedimentation, ultimately transforming into an eternal radiance. And I, at last, understood what true pursuit is, what true rebirth means. A year later, Nicole and I unveiled our second joint project, Interwoven, at the National Art Museum. This series was even bolder and more innovative than Rebirth, blending Eastern and Western aesthetics with various art forms. Critics hailed it as a significant breakthrough in contemporary art. At the opening ceremony, Nicole held my arm as we faced the media interviews and congratulations from the audience together. She wore a simple white dress, and around her neck was the Eye of Rebirth necklace we designed together, She completed the jewelry part based on my painting. Your collaboration seems even more in sync than your last project, a reporter asked with a suggestive smile. Nicole glanced at me, and we exchanged a smile. Yes, both in art and in life, we found the perfect balance. This indirect answer drew a round of good-natured laughter from the reporters present. My relationship with Nicole was no longer a secret, but we always kept a low profile, letting the public's attention remain focused on our artistic creations. After the exhibition, we drove out to a small hill in the countryside. There stood an ancient oak tree, beneath which Mary's ashes were laid to rest. This was the place we chose, rather than a traditional cemetery, natural, peaceful, just like Mary herself. Mary, the exhibition was a great success today, I said softly to the stone beneath the tree. Nicole's designs were admired by everyone, just as you once predicted. Nicole crouched down and placed a bouquet of white daisies in front of the stone. Teacher Nicole, I've been working hard to become the kind of designer you hoped I would be. I hope you can be proud of me. A gentle breeze stirred, and the oak's leaves rustled softly, as if it were Mary's reply. On the way back, Nicole suddenly said, I've been thinking about something. What is it? If that woman who pretended to be Ms. Nicole hadn't appeared, you might never have found the blood amber, never created the pursuit, and we might never have met. Her words made me fall into deep thought. Indeed, it was the series of events triggered by that deception that ultimately led to everything now. It feels as if, in the unseen, some force has been orchestrating it all. Perhaps that's the irony of fate, I said softly. Sometimes, the worst beginnings can lead us to the best endings. When I returned home, I received an unexpected package. Upon opening it, I found a delicate little box containing a handmade ring. Though simple, the craftsmanship had improved greatly compared to the pieces I had seen before. There was a note attached. Mr. George, thank you for your kindness and understanding a year ago, which gave me the courage to start over. Now I have found a job at a small jewelry shop, and my life is gradually getting back on track. This ring represents my gratitude, and I wish you happiness and well-being on your new path. Luna, I handed the ring to Nicole. After examining it carefully, she remarked, her skills have improved a lot. She truly is talent. Some mistakes in life shouldn't become permanent scars, I sighed. Everyone deserves a second chance. That night, we sat in the studio, discussing ideas for the next series. Nicole suddenly proposed a bold idea. I was thinking, maybe we could try connecting the different stages of our work to create a complete narrative. From eternity to quest, then to rebirth, and intertwined, they're actually different phases in a person's life journey. You mean? A complete story about loss, searching, rebirth, and integration, she explained excitedly, ultimately asking what is the most precious treasure in life. Love. I finished her sentence, no matter what form it takes. Nicole nodded, her eyes sparkling with creative fire. We could call it the forms of love, an unprecedented artistic exploration. Sounds like a long-term, ambitious project. We have time, she smiled, holding my hand. We have so much time. In that moment, I felt a powerful surge of creative inspiration, just like when I first began my artistic career years ago, filled with passion and possibility. But this time, I was not facing the blank canvas alone. 2 years later, the Forms of Love series was exhibited simultaneously in the world's 5 greatest art museums, causing an unprecedented sensation. Critics called it a milestone in contemporary art history, blending painting, sculpture, jewelry design, and other art forms to create an entirely new artistic language. The final piece of the exhibition was titled Eternal Ring, a massive circular canvas depicting every form of love in life, familial, platonic, romantic, and the love for art itself. The edge of the canvas was inlaid with gemstones of various sizes, and under certain lighting, these gems would cast light onto specific parts of the canvas, revealing another hidden layer of patterns. The centerpiece of this work is a massive blood amber. Through intricate optical design, the light it projects perfectly outlines 2 embracing figures. One is Mary, the other is Nicole, symbolizing the intersection of past and present, the fusion of memory and rebirth. On the closing day of the exhibition, in front of the Eternal Ring, I knelt on one knee and proposed to Nicole. The ring was crafted from the very blood amber Mary had once prepared for me, designed by my own hand and fashioned by the finest jeweler. This ring carries the memories of the past and the hopes for the future, I whispered softly. Nicole, will you be the eternal ring in my life? Her tears sparkled under the spotlight. I will. Amidst the cheers, I remembered what Mary once said. Love does not disappear. It merely changes its form. Yes, love does not disappear. It exists in memories, in art, in every rebirth and new beginning. It traverses time and crosses space, like that blood amber which, after millions of years, still shines, forever retaining the original warmth and brilliance of life. This is the answer I have been searching for all along. Between loss and gain, between seeking and rebirth, love remains constant, only appearing in different forms along the journey of life. And all we need to do is bravely accept this gift, no matter how it comes to us. On the day of the wedding, the sky was a clear, washed blue. Beneath the ancient oak tree that had watched over Mary, we exchanged our vows. A gentle breeze stirred, making the leaves whisper as if blessings were drifting in from another world. No matter when or where, Nicole said softly, we'll always remember that it was she who brought us together. Yes, I squeezed her hand, and we will always cherish this gift. In the brilliant sunlight, the blood amber ring gleamed, radiant as life itself, enduring the passage of time, yet still shining bright.